See what happens when a military vet discovers the world of podcasting in an all new. Did I read this right? They give a military vet his own podcast show. Now, who in the world thought that was? Here's the recording. Edit that out. See what happens when a military vet discovers the whole new world of podcasting in an all new The Birdman Show. For real, Cletus. Edit that out, man. I need his job.
Yo, what is up, everybody? How are we doing? It is time for another episode of the Birdman Show. Do it with me. That's right. It's your host, the Birdman. I'm rocking and rolling. Season 2, episode 3, and actually it's actually part 2 of episode 2. So we're just gonna call it episode 2, part 2. And I'm still rocking and rolling with my man, Big Sam. Big Sam, baby. How are we doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm doing good. Back for another episode. I'm excited to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited to do it too, man. This is cool. This is great. Hey, before we get started though, I have got to say this. We're with a new platform, and I want to say that the Birdman Show is powered by Riverside.fm. It's the easiest way and only way to do a podcast. Well, not the only way, but it's the only way I'm going to continue doing a podcast. Riverside has amazing editing tools and an unmatched community of experts that will help you take your podcast to the next level. So if you want to learn more, check out the link in the Tim Birdman Simpson Facebook profile and come take a flight with your boy, the Birdman, and Riverside, and I'll see you in the clouds. That's right. All right, Sam, look. I don't even want to mix words. I don't want to prolong everything. We talked about on our last episode, okay? Episode 2. We talked about on our last episode, the Zodiac Killer, right? Now, the Zodiac Killer, like I said last time, has been fascinating to me, mainly because he's unknown. They were never able to catch him. All right. He's connected to 5 murders, but he claims that he has killed over 37 people. Okay. So that's why it's kind of fascinating to me, because still we really don't know much about this dude. All right, and what he's done. Well, we know what he's done, or what he said he's done, but we don't know much about him. Okay. Now, as we talked about last episode, we talked about his reign of terror, which was only for roughly about a year. I mean, it was really about a year. Okay. We talked about the first set of murders. We talked about hold on a second. We talked about David was it David Faraday? Yeah, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen was the first set of murders. Okay. Darlene Farron and Mike McGee, whatever. I can't pronounce it.
I think it's Magoo.
Whatever.
I think it's Magoo.
We talked. Yeah, Magoo. We're gonna go with Magoo. We mentioned them, so we're gonna dive a little bit more into this. All right, we're gonna dive a little bit more into this. Talk about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the second set of murders?
So the second set of murders, it was about a 6-month period that separated these murders from the first set. And I think it's kind of the first time that we start to get a look at him, at who he may be a little bit, because this would be the first time where he claims, ownership of the murders. He's going to call police afterwards and say, "Hey, by the way, I just killed these 2 people." And he also claims the murders that we had talked about previously. So these murders happened about 4 miles from the first site. Another young couple. It was a young couple. They drove up. It was 4th of July. Going to a little little couple spot probably. And while they were there, another car drove up, parked next to him. Apparently, he left and then came back maybe about 10 or 15 minutes later, and he pulled up on the passenger side. And I say that because it was actually Darlene's car, and so Magoo, my guy Michael Magoo, was going to be he's on the passenger side. So it's kind of going back to, the first set. We're seeing a lot of intelligence. He comes up, he says, "Oh, okay, I could kill these two people." He realizes that the male is on the passenger side, so that's the side that he approaches. This time, we don't know if it happened the first time, but he has a flashlight with him this time, and so he's actually shining the flashlight at him as he's like approaching, and he fires into him. And let's see, I think it says he fired 5 times. Those victims were hit. A lot of bullets passed through Magoo into Sam. And then he walked away, but he apparently came back and shot each of them twice more. So then, like I said, at about 12:40 or so, he actually called the police to claim responsibility for him, and he said that, where they were, took credit for the other 2 murders. But this time, my guy Michael Magoo, he pulled it out. He survived. So we actually get a description of the guy. So there's a lot that happened. There's a cleared off period of about 6 months between the two, but we kind of started getting a little bit more insight to this guy. So it's a lot to dive into on this one. So what do you got for me?
Yo, yeah, it's a lot to dive into. And I'm gonna add in because here's the thing about doing a lot of this stuff is like there's so much information, slash misinformation, and you always have to kind of like pick and choose. Like I heard like some of the things details you were given as far as the shots and everything, this and that. So like one of the things I looked up when they talked about the method of attack when it came to them was that Farron was age 22. Darlene Farron was age 22, and it said she was shot 9 times. Eminem, I'm just gonna call him Eminem because I can't pronounce the last name. Eminem was 19 years old, all right, and was shot 4 times. Okay, and of course, once again, weapon of choice was a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Okay, there was no indication of robbery or sexual assault or anything like that, and there were no witnesses. And the crazy thing about it is, we all already know Mike, aka Eminem, survived the attack, and he was actually the first one who was actually able to give a description of the attacker. So it's just really crazy to me because it's like, okay, it's like I'll put it in perspective like this. I don't know about you, Big Sam, but I know when I was in school, elementary school, and that was ages ago. Lord Jesus, ages ago. We used to play this game, okay? And it was called telephone or telephone operator or something like that. Where we start at the front of class, back of class, wherever you want to start. And the teacher, okay. So the teacher or whoever was in charge would give you a sentence or whatever, and they say, okay, this is what I'm telling you. Okay, the rose is red, whatever. I don't know, whatever it is. They give you some type of sentence, right? And so you had to take what you heard from that person, and then you had to pass it on to the next person. That person had to take what you said and pass it on to the next person. And so they waited till all the way to the end, to the last person, and that person had to say what everybody said, okay, and what their interpretation was. It's funny because I'm not gonna say it is funny, but at the same time, it's reality. One person can tell you the truth. They can tell you exactly what happened, this and that. You hear it. Then you turn around and tell the next person. And from that person, it changes. It always changes. Information always changes. That's why I always say it's very important if you hear something or this and that, go to the source. Actually find out what the source is. Now, of course, we're doing what we do. We talking about the Zodiac Killer, so we can't go to the source. We can't. All right, because we have no idea. Now, Sam, kind of do me a favor, kind of talk about some of your opinions that you had from the first episode to now, as far as like you said before, you really thought that at first you thought the murders were random, that there maybe not have been a lot of thought into them, or some of the things you had thought about that going into this one.
Well, yeah, kind of what you just touched on. I had mentioned that it felt like maybe at least the first set of murders were random. But then the second set happens, and based on one of the victims surviving, we finally get a look into kind of this guy's method a little bit. We get a description of him. It's the first time he contacts police, so he's showing that aspect as well. And they don't feel random anymore. It feels like something that he's planning on doing. I think the victim selection may be somewhat random. I don't think he's stalking these people necessarily. I think he's going probably to these spots, that kind of like these couple spots back in the day, and kind of scoping it out first a little bit, but it's showing a lot of intelligence regardless, just based on he's going after the male first. He's disabling them with a flashlight. Obviously, like if he did drive up and then drive away before coming back to do them, he was kind of scoping it out a little bit first, and it's not necessarily that weird.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, we got to get out of here now. They're just going to be like, oh, okay, that was a little bit odd, but let's get back to our night, So it's
right.
I don't think it's random. I think he's definitely smart about it. He's showing a lot of intelligence now, so it's it's just a lot more to dive into now with this set compared to the first, just because we finally are starting to get a look at the guy a little bit. So that would be
Now,
kind of,
here's
what
what
my
I'll
opinion
say.
has changed a little bit.
Okay. Now, here's where I'll go along with this. Now, this case, this second set of murders actually kind of, I'm not going to say reinforces something I said in the first episode, part one of this episode. I'm not going to say it can. I'm not going to say it doesn't reinforce, but at the same time, it kind of, what I will say, it kind of makes you think along the same lines as what I was saying, or one of the opinions I had in the first episode, and that was, I had said, I was like, with some of these murders, they're couples. Most of all of them are couples. Okay, so maybe it was the fact that the killer, what I'm saying, maybe his wife, had an affair. Maybe she cheated on him. Maybe he found out about it. And now he's, going off and just killing all these couples, this is that. Now, the reason why I say that is to say this. One of the other details that came from this particular murder, not the first one, but this particular murder, was the fact that Darlene Barron, she was married. She was married, and she worked as a waitress at Terry's restaurant. Now, Mike Magoo, was single and worked as a laborer. Okay, so now Darlene's husband is suspected of murder now. Now, of course, we all know how that works. You know what I'm saying? If that something like that happens, the first person they're going to go after is the husband. All right, regardless, I'm not going to say go after. The first one they're going to look into is the husband, which is rightfully so. Okay, especially if you're talking about there being any type of any type of domestic dispute, anything like that, or murder, this is that. The first person they're gonna look at is the husband. Okay, so we all know that. But that kind of plays into what I said in the first episode of this. Is well, maybe something happened with him in his marriage or relationship or whatever, and maybe that spouse or partner that he had cheated on him. So now he's targeting couples. Okay, because this is a running theme throughout the especially the 5 murders that he's connected to. Okay, with the exception of one. It's connected to all the murders he's connected to. All right. So that, I mean, I wonder about that. I still kind of wonder about that. But it's I don't know. It's it's still like, because we still don't know so much about the Zodiac Killer that like I said in before previously, there's so many different rabbit holes you can go down when it comes to this. And a lot of it, because now this day and age, we've seen so many different serial killers, so many different murderers that have gone on these little sprees or whatever, that there's so many different things that are tied to them. So therefore, we have all this knowledge, all these resources that we're looking up, this and that can tie into somebody just freaking just going off the rails and just, hey, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm dialing it in. I salute you. Bam. I'm killing everybody. So there's so many different things we can go over that. So up until now, taking everything you've learned right now and what we talked about, Sam, what are some of your thoughts when it comes to not only the Zodiac Killer, but his methods, not only in killing, but taunting the police?
Yeah, well, I think I would kind of have to touch on a little bit of what you're saying with like the, maybe a failed relationship or whatever. Just because of like the couples being kind of his victims. As far as his method, I mean, it's obviously, like I keep kind of harping on, it's a very intelligent method, but it's also just very quick and kind of to the point. So it almost makes you wonder if there was a past relationship type thing going on with him, because there's not maybe that level of rage that would be associated with it. But at the same time, it could just be like a cold-hearted boom, boom, boom. It's done, So it could still kind of tie in together, I think, a little bit. But yeah, this is now going to be the first time where he's taunting police. He calls them, lets them know what happened, claims responsibility. I think he gave them their location, and then, just a little under a month later, that's when he finally sends the first letters to like the news outlets and whatnot. So as far as his method, I mean, it's a smart method, man. He gets after it. It's quick. It's clean. It doesn't really leave like too much time for witnesses to come up or whatever. So it's showing a lot of intelligence.
Right.
And then I think the stuff with the police, man, the correspondence with the police, I think that kind of just plays more into it as well. I think he just kind of wants to show off how smart he is too. I know I mentioned that in the first episode as well, and I stand by that. I don't see any other reason why you would want to taunt authorities if you're going to be able to like outsmart them or not. So I think that's kind of my take right now, currently, from what we've gotten into a little bit.
No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Okay, so here's what I want to do, Sam. I want to take a quick break. All right, we got, we got to do some sponsor stuff. I want to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk about some of these suspects that they had early on. And let's touch on some of them, okay? All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more The Birdman Show. Private Podcast has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast
right from your phone, tablet, or computer. And when hosting on Spotify for podcasts, you can distribute your podcast listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. It's really everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. The best part about it, totally free. What the heck you waiting for? Go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started. Just say a little birdie told you.
Yo, yeah.
It's Kales.
Kales and OJ. Yo, we're back. It is the Birdman Show. I'm still rocking and rolling with my man Big Sam. Big Sam, yo. We getting into it. We talking about the Zodiac Killer. You know what I'm saying? We getting into it. So how are you still rocking and rolling with me, baby?
I gotta look at this guy a little bit, so you know, we're trying to piece it together. But shit, this dude's smarter than me.
Yeah, I feel you, bro. I do. I feel you, man. Like this case kind of wrecked my brain, and it's funny because, like, some of the cases we're gonna talk about, and like I said, for those who don't know about what this Birdman show was about, it originated, and I'm gonna give you a quick brief history. It originated as me being a retired military soldier. Okay, it was infantry soldier in the Army. And you know, and we talk, we'll talk about some tough things. The first episode we did, I talked with a good friend of mine. He's my brother, Ace. He's on TikTok, great following. They deal with a lot of PTSD, depression, anxiety, just dealing with things in general general life, and that's what this show is about as well. Are hard to deal with, but need to be dealt with, need to be talked about, and creating a community that supports one another. I feel, not to get on my soapbox, but I'm going to. I feel as a society, we have failed one another. We have forgotten what it means to really be there for your fellow man and woman. And I usually say fellow man. You know, whether you believe in the Bible, whatever, this is that. When they talk about mankind, it's not talking about men. It's talking about men, women, everyone who lives on this earth. So this is what this show is about. You know, we deal with this. Now, I wanted to add the aspect of the true crime. I wanted to add talking about some of these things, because a lot of times what we'll deal with is the fact that a lot of these serial killers, murderers, this and that, had mental issues that nobody dealt with. No one cared enough to help that person before it got to this point. All right, now the Zodiac Killer is an outliner. Let's just put it out there, because we have no idea. There's no idea. We have no idea what his early childhood was. And for those people saying, "Oh, well, how are you just going to assume it's a man?" Well, we got to assume it's a man because of the simple fact of what happened in the second murder. All right. There was a survivor. He gave us an account of what the killer looked like. He gave account of a man. So it's not saying that the women can't be, because trust me, I've got some serial killer women that are going to be on this list that we're going to talk about in later episodes. So this is not about just man, women, but no, we'll get into that. But like I said, I mean, a lot of these things, some of these things could have been avoided if we had properly paid attention and diagnosed these people with the issues that they were actually truly having. Sam, with me saying that, I mean, what is your stance when it comes to that?
I agree. I'd say probably about like 95%, because I think that there are a lot of these guys, and I mean just serial killers in general, that do have some sort of mental issue going on. But at the same time, I'm also a firm believer that some of these people are just kind of plain evil. And so I think that kind of plays into it a little bit too, to affect my opinion on that a little bit. But I do think for the most part that
Okay.
there are some mental issues that a lot of these people deal with. A lot of guys are like, a lot of them are diagnosed schizophrenic, and that goes, and they're always like untreated for that for years, and I know that's a really big one that comes up a lot. But yeah, I would say that, for the most part, the topics of the show, we want to talk about um, the mental health side of things and mental illness and what have you. But at the same time, the true crime and what we're talking about with that, it all does tie in together. So a couple of kind of different topics to talk about, but they are very much so related. So yeah, it's a fun show, man. It's something that I think people need to talk about more. And I think we're starting to be more open about it, as a society. I think it's starting to be a thing that's pushed more as a society these days. And so that gives me a lot of hope, just kind of for us as a society. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think, something like this, a platform for people to talk about stuff, whether it's this show or another show or whatever the case may be, I think is very needed.
Mhm.
So that's my stance on it right now, for sure.
Sam, I'm with you, man. And the thing is, what you said, sir, like it's a hot topic for me, man. And it's something that really hits me. Like I said, it pulls on the heartstrings. Pulls on. It gets me right there. Saying the care box. It's tough, bro. Like I'm gonna speak from the demographic of the American soldier. Okay, from the Marines, Army. I was Army. So I know a lot of Marine soldiers. My father was a Marine. Sorry, my father is a Marine. Okay, once a Marine, always a Marine. Whatever. Air Force. I know I have a lot of Air Force friends. National Guard. Um, all armed forces. I don't care. I'm not one of those. Oh, well, you're just a National Guard or you're just reserve, so you didn't really. No. You signed the contract, whatever it is, you serve. Whether you actually going overseas or not. If you sign a contract saying you're willing to go, you're a brother and sister of mine, regardless. I don't care. I'm not one of those like, oh, I was active duty, you're not. So no, I don't care. You're a brother or sister of mine. Okay. Now, what I'm gonna say about this is that is everything you said. Like it hits me because the fact is so. The fact that the military doesn't take the mental side of it more seriously than what it does, it bothers me. It infuriates me. Because like I said before,
Well, if I
and
can
I've
cut
said
in for a moment,
time and time before on it. The other, you said what?
so if I could cut in for a
What did you say?
moment, my dad
Go
served.
ahead.
If I could just cut in for a second, real quick,
Yes.
about this, because like my dad served. My dad served in Vietnam. He was a Marine for I think 12 years. He passed away in 2017. But there was one thing that always kind of sticks with me that he told me, is he didn't talk about that time a lot with me. He didn't talk about it very much at all. He did a little bit as he got older, but we had a tree line out that you could see from our front door, and from where he would sit in his recliner, he could see the tree line out of the front door. And he told
Yeah.
me one day that he could still see, the Vietnam soldiers coming out of the tree line towards him. 30, 40 years later after the fact, he's still dealing with PTSD to that level. So, what you
Yeah.
just said with them not taking it very seriously on the mental side of it, I was a first-hand witness to it. So I would definitely agree with you
Yeah.
on that, man.
Yeah, and that's 100%. Like, I mean, most people don't understand. Like, I don't, I I don't like going to Walmart, because of how many people are usually there. Like we live in, Sam and I, we live in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and we have two different Walmarts. We have a neighborhood Walmart. We have the big regular Walmart. And I can count on one hand how many times, like, if he's going with me to Walmart, I can count on one hand how many times we went to the big Walmart. Because I can't do it. I can't do crowds. I just can't. It just, and sometimes people, and this is where the information gets a little messed up. People think that I can't do crowds because of, being overseas, and I can't do crowds because I've learned how to listen and hear without paying attention. So I hear people talking, I hear the things that are going on around me, and it infuriates me because I've lost brothers, I've lost sisters to wars that I necessarily didn't agree with, but because I signed a contract and because I said I was going to follow the orders of those who led me, I've led soldiers into battle that didn't come back. And it hurts me because I'm listening to people complain about some of the dumbest stuff. I'm hearing all these people who were here that feel like they sound like they think they're entitled to a certain thing. Now, I watch these videos on TikTok. I watch these videos on TikTok and Facebook and this and that, and people talking about, they having issues with, the sheriff's department and officers. Like, oh, I know my rights. I know my rights. Well, do you really honestly know your rights? Because I fought for your rights. I bled for your rights. I've lost friends and people I consider to be family so you can have your rights. Do you really know your rights? Because if you really know your rights, number one, you probably wouldn't be doing the dumb stuff you're doing right now. You know what I mean? You probably wouldn't be, breaking the law, doing this, that, and then trying to find a loophole so you can hide behind the law. Maybe you would do that. Maybe that's the thing. Okay. So I get irritated. I don't like crowds because I don't like dealing with a lot of people because I don't want to hear their opinion. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's kind of funny because they're like, oh, why are you doing a podcast then? Because people are going to chime in on their opinions. That's it. That is one part of it. Like, I'm man enough and I'm big enough to know that if I'm doing this type of platform, I'm doing this type of show, I'm going to get opinions. I got to deal with those opinions. I can do that. But it's one of those things where I don't know. I don't mean to get off on the subject of what we're talking about, you know what I'm saying? But it's sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it all ties in, sometimes I don't know. It is what it is. But to keep on track to what we're talking about here, as far as what comes to the Zodiac Killer, we've talked about the first two murders, right? Okay. So now, Sam, I'm gonna ask you this question. Okay. Taking what you know from what we talked about, the first set of murders, and the fact that the Zodiac Killer didn't brag, he didn't send any type of letters. At this point in time, he didn't send any type of codes in. He didn't send any type of anything in deeming who this is, and nobody knew. And at this point in time, no one knew the first two, and this second set was even connected. So, taking what you know from that, what are your thoughts if you are the lead detective on this case? You know what I'm saying? And you have those first two murders, and now you say, it's a year later, or 4 months later. I'm sorry, it's 4 months later. Now you're getting the second set of murders. Like, what the bro? And then all of a sudden, now you're getting a phone call. Going from, okay, got these two murders. 2 murders. 4 months later, another 2 murders. Man, it's crazy. This is messed up. And all of a sudden, what the? I got a letter. Somebody saying they killed both. Somebody called in and said they killed both. Oh Lord Jesus, what is your thoughts? If you were the detective working this, what are your thoughts right now?
I'd probably find it hard to believe because like that's just never been done. You know, when do people? Why would somebody call a police station and say, "Hey, I just killed some people"? You know. So at first, I'd probably think it's just like, oh, you know, at the time, if I was a detective, I'd probably say it's some kind of bad joke. But I mean, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot of.
Okay.
They have a little bit of correspondence back and forth, you know, and he does end up providing like evidence and details that haven't been released to like say, okay, yeah, no, this guy's definitely the one behind it. But my initial thoughts, I would probably think it's just a bad joke, you know, because we're not having any luck finding anybody. You know, we have a description now, but dog, it's Los Angeles and it's the 60s. You know, it's going to take some time to find somebody that even fits the description, and it's probably not even going to be your guy. You know,
Right.
so it's
Okay.
I would take it as a bad joke, and I'd probably be pretty pissed off about it if I was the detective at the time.
Right. Now, so here's the thing. This happened in what, 1968? It happened what, between 1968 and 1969, right? If I'm reading that right.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1968 to 1969. Okay. Now we're in 2023. Okay. Now I have to assume, I'm not gonna say I believe, I have to assume that majority of the people that worked on this case back then are probably either passed away or you know they're still alive and memory's not as good as it used to be. So there were some suspects that were in this case. There was and here's this is what gets me, right? So in this case that basically expanded for a year, there were, oh my God, so there was thousands of Zodiac Killer suspects since 1969 or 1968. I'm sorry, thousands. There are thousands of suspects, but no one ever actually like formally charged with it from that time. That's what killed thousands. This is a number that like one source cited by investigative documentaries and true crime media for the Zodiac Killer suspects. Thousands. Okay. Now some of those noted suspects were there was a guy named Arthur Leigh Allen. He was one of the main he's one of the suspects that they thought. And it said that if you attended public school in California from the late 1950s through 1960s, top Zodiac suspect with Arthur Leigh Allen might have been your teacher or trampoline coach. What? Like, they say teacher or trampoline coach. Like, you know how many trampolines I've been on?
Many as a black man, I
You know how
know.
many trampolines I've been on?
I said it.
What was that supposed to mean? Wow. Going there.
Hey man,
I'm gonna remember that.
I said it with my whole chest.
Another one.
My whole big hairy chest.
I know you did. You did. You're right. Roger that. You did. Another one was Rick Marshall. Okay, so now on March 13th, 1926, Rick Marshall was born under the name John Don Dickey in Slaton, Texas. It's like Lubbock County. Throughout most of his life, Marshall alternated between the two names, and was known for those reasons. Okay. Now, these are some of the suspects. Okay. Just some of the suspects that they were talking about. So, Sam, I'm gonna ask you a question. What if I told you they think they actually found the Zodiac Killer?
I've seen a little bit of what I think you may be talking about, and from what I've read, it seems like it could be likely.
Yes, it could be likely,
So
sir.
I
It
don't
definitely
know.
could be likely. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna talk about it after this commercial break. That's what we're gonna do. We're talk about this commercial break. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more The Birdman Show.
Hey, it's the Birdman here from the Birdman Show. And I have a quick question for you. Are you like me and don't know what to do once the college and NBA basketball seasons are over and you still want to watch basketball? Well, I just might have an answer for your basketball blues. The Tri-State 66ers are a minor league basketball team located in Pittsburgh, Kansas. I know what you're saying. But Birdman, I don't live in Pittsburgh, Kansas. How can I watch all the action? No problem. You can check all the games out on their YouTube channel at Tri-State 66. That's Tri-State at 66 ERS. And you can also follow them on their Facebook page at Tri-State 66ers, all words, no numbers, to stay up to date with everything going on with the team. So if you want to watch Major League talent on a minor league budget, check out the Tri-State 66ers. Tell them a bird sent you. Birdman, that is.
Yo, what's up? How you doing? It's the Birdman. Do it with me. That's right. It's the Birdman. We are on the Birdman Show. We doing it. We talking about the Zodiac Killer. I'm with my man, Big Sam, and we're still rocking and rolling with it. Big Sam, baby, how we doing?
Man, you just said it. We're rocking and rolling, baby.
That's right. We are rocking and rolling. Now, Sam, yeah. Before we took the break, all right, we talked about a couple more of the victims, a few more of the victims of murders that Zodiac Killer was involved with. Like I said, and we've always we said this because we've reported like what things that were there. He's connected to 5, but he said there's 37. I've killed 37 people. And that's what always kind of fascinated me about is that they were talking about, well, he's only connected to 5. Okay, he's saying he's killed 5 people, but he's also telling you, I've killed 37 people. Why are we not acknowledging that? Like, why are we seriously not acknowledging that? But you know what? That's neither here or there. We're just gonna move on from that. Now, here's what gets me. Okay, Sam. There's been some suspects, over 1,000 people that have been, on the suspect list of the Zodiac Killer. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, Sam. How long have you known about the Zodiac Killer?
I'd say probably for the better part of maybe 10 years now or so. I can't give you like an exact date of when I first learned about the guy, but I've known about him for quite a while, yeah. I mean, I'm 25, so I've known about him since I was a teenager, I'd say, at least, for sure.
Okay. All right. So you've known about him since you were a teenager. Okay. Did you know that they actually, at some point in time, they had identified someone who was more likely the Zodiac Killer?
I've seen a few things. I think from everything that I've kind of seen, it seems like there's 2 guys that are kind of the primary suspects. I think one guy was just more so like a hunch that detectives had back in the day, and then I think I had seen something about a group that had found somebody that claimed to have some evidence that actually pointed to the guy. So I think it's kind of up in the air a little bit between these 2, but I feel like these 2, at least based on everything that I've seen, they're probably the 2 most likely guys.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you this. Okay. So I'm gonna touch on the group that said that they think they found the Zodiac Killer. Okay. Now you said on some of the things that you researched, there was a group and there was somebody else that said that they thought they know who the Zodiac Killer was, right? So I'll touch on the group. You touch on the other aspect of it. We're gonna see if the names match up. All right.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Shit.
All right. So you talk about one of the names. We're gonna see if they match up real quick. What's the name that you have, and then I'll say the name that I have.
The name that I have for who I think I'm supposed to talk about is the Arthur Leigh Allen. I know you had mentioned him very briefly a little bit ago. So that's who I had kind of planned on talking about a little bit.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. This is why I love this. Okay, because information is key. Yes, 100%. Yes. Now, the name that was given by the group that said that they found the Zodiac Killer was are you ready for this, Sam? Air Force veteran Gary Francis Post. And that's Post as in Poste. Air Force veteran. Okay. Now, can you give me some things on the name that you gave me, and maybe why you think that could be the Zodiac Killer?
So I mean, this one is kind of mostly just like detectives following their gut a little bit and kind of having a hunch and saying, I know this is the guy, but they don't have anything at all to prove it. So that's really all that this is based on. So there was a book titled Zodiac that was written by Robert Graysmith, who kind of put Arthur Allen as kind of the suspect based on circumstantial evidence. He had been interviewed multiple times over a 20-year period. There were multiple search warrants that police issued against him. Graysmith had even noted that several police detectives said Allen is probably the most likely suspect. And then you have Mark Ruffalo, he's an actor, who portrayed somebody in the film Zodiac in 2007. And he was apparently told that, and I'll quote this, if you get into who these cops were, you realize how they have to take their hunches, their personal beliefs out of it. Dave Toshi, who I believe was a detective at the time, said to me, as soon as that guy walked in the door, I knew it was him. He was sure he had him, but he never had a solid piece of evidence, so he just had to keep investigating every other lead. So that's really kind of all that it's based on. I could get into a little bit of what they may have found or whatever, but there really just wasn't much. Like I said, it was just circumstantial evidence, which is not enough to really convict anybody. Unless they have like just one solid suspect and all they have is circumstantial evidence, and then that kind of just leaves it up to the jury on if they think that the guy did it or not.
Right.
So I think your group may have found a better suspect, and I know we had kind of touched on it a little bit as well. You mentioned that he was an Air Force veteran. We had kind of mentioned a little bit like previous gun training, maybe a military background a little bit in the previous episode.
Yes.
So you hear that, and then
yes.
They claim to have evidence and whatnot. So it could very well be this guy as well. So I mean, shit.
Now
what you got over there?
Okay,
I'm curious.
okay, Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, I know, and I'm gonna get there because here's what bothers me about this. Okay, this is what bothers me about this. Like what you read, like I can get behind that. I really could. I can get behind that. I can get behind what I'm saying too. Okay, I really can. So both of those are plausible. I can get behind either one of those. Okay. Now, what bothers me the most about this is because in what the evidence, or no, I'm not gonna say evidence, what has been presented by this source when it comes to the group of the people that were looking into this. This is coming from the fact that the FBI has identified the infamous Zodiac Killer. That's what bothers me. The FBI being involved with it. Any government agency being involved in this. That bothers me. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why it bothers me, okay? You know, they said they're going to say Zodiac Killer who killed, 5 people in the 1960s, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with this, okay? Here's the thing that bothers me, right? It was identified that this person, okay, the person I mentioned, which was Gary Francis Post, all right, he was identified in 2016 as being the Zodiac Killer. 2016. He was identified. All the research they did, all everything they did that connected the Zodiac Killer was connected to this person in 2016. 2016. It's what? 2023? I'm gonna ask you this question, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard about the Zodiac Killer. You know he's been connected to 5 murders, possibly 37. 2020. When did you ever hear that there was a suspect that was identified? 100.
Never heard anything about it until I really dove into researching about them. Honestly, I think I had maybe seen something on like Twitter about like, oh, well, I think we finally found the guy, and it was probably something that just didn't really garner a whole lot of attention. I don't really remember if it was an accurate thing or not, or if it was just some kind of like fake news, like Twitter account or something. So, that's probably the extent of what I had heard about it.
Okay. Now, that's funny. You said that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because, maybe fake news, this and that, this, whatever. Okay. Like I said, where I start to get a little leery about some things is when government agencies are involved. Like, conspiracy theories is one thing. Okay, saying that, oh well, we here at outsource, I don't know, whatever. I don't care, whatever. Anything that's not government related, and they're reporting something is one thing. But when you hear an FBI whistleblower, somebody that was tied to an agency dealing with the government, that's like, hey, I'm no longer with the government. Just keep my name out of it. But I used to work with the government, and this is what I know. This is where I have a problem. I mean, I question. Okay, so I'm gonna read this. Okay, an FBI whistleblower confirmed to him, and they're talking about the interview they did, that Air Force veteran Gary Francis Post was a suspect in the murder as being the Zodiac Killer. Now, this is what gets me, right? It's very convenient how this is. It's very convenient how this is. Gary Francis Post died in 2018. Died in 2018. Now, it's said that he was connected to the case by a partial DNA sample. So the one person that the government is acknowledging may have been the Zodiac Killer or been tied to the case died 2018. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't subscribe to that stuff. I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen because you know what? As serving in the military, sometimes it's best to come up with something that is believable to the American public, so that way you can save them the heartache or whatever from knowing, hey, look, we had to make some hard choices to make sure you're safe. Like look, I'm retired. I can still get with that. I can still get down with that because you know what? Americans don't want to know what we have to do as soldiers to make sure you're safe every single day. They don't want to know. They don't. I'm not going to pretend like they do. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't care if they do. Because yes, there's some tough choices that we have to make, that the higher ups have to make to tell us to go do something that we have to do. I will do it all over again. If they call me up right now and say, hey, Sergeant, we need to send you over to do something, I'll be like, hey, roger that. Why? Because you know what? Sam, I love you, right? You know I love you, man. I do. I love you, bro. I love you like a son. I do. I love you like a son, treat you like a son. I would much rather go over and do it myself than to have them send you over there to go do something. You shut up. I would much rather them send me over to go do it than to have them say, hey, we're going to send Sam over to go. No, I'll do it my damn self. You know what I'm saying? I would say that I would do it myself, let him sit his ass on the couch. You know what I'm saying? Because the simple fact is, I know what it takes. I've been there. I have done that. I will do it again. If it saves my children, if it saves my neighbor, if it saves my family, friends of my family, friends of myself, if it saves them from having to go through that or having to say, man, I got to make this choice, I would do it again. And that's how I am. That's where I'm at. I will do that. I have no problem with that because I've done it. Okay. So when I look at this one and I'm seeing that there's an FBI whistleblower, I'm starting to think about some of the other conspiracy theories I've heard. I'll start with two. There's two I'll start with. JFK, Martin Luther King. JFK. The magic bullet? Really? So we're going to concede that there's magic bullets that has fairy dust does it on them. We're going to ignore the fact that there's reports out there that Martin Luther King survived the initial shots, and where he really died was at the hospital. We're going over that. There's Sam, I picked this topic for a reason. The Zodiac it's an anomaly. It's one of those things where there's a lot of things you can come off from this. There's so many different ways you can come off saying that this could be the person, that could be the person, this, and that. There's so many different things. This is like with JFK. Same thing with Martin Luther King. Where does your imagination take you when you hear those names? JFK, Martin Luther King. For those that don't know who JFK is, because there's some people don't know who's JFK. Birdman? What are you talking about? Who's JFK? If you don't know who JFK is, John F. Kennedy, who could have been one of the greatest presidents we ever had, but he never really had a chance to truly be the president we needed. So, Big Sam, hearing that, JFK, Martin Luther King, Zodiac, what's your thoughts?
Conspiracy theories. Hearing that is the first time. That is always the first time I heard about this could this case and who this guy could be is maybe a conspiracy. So I'll have to give you some later thoughts on that because I don't know how to digest that right now, honestly. But I mean, you kind of, especially, well, like when you throw those two in, I'm a firm believer that those were those two killings, MLK and JFK. I'm a firm believer that it was like a government, you know, operation type thing going on there. So, and then you tie in the
Okay.
Zodiac and this guy that is probably a suspect. There's a little bit of DNA that ties them to it. There's circumstantial evidence that throws it that you can be thrown in there as well. And apparently we had the guy, but nothing was done about it. So it could have been some type of cover up. Just never having this guy get caught. Or if that was like the motive or something. I don't know. But I'm kind of with you right now a little bit. Yeah.
And look, I'm not trying to start nothing, but it's in my opinion, my experience. Like you can really pin something on somebody that's dead that doesn't have the ability to come back and say, "Whoa, wait a minute, I didn't do that." If they, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, this person, oh, we believe this person killed this person. Oh, by the way, they died last year, or they died 2, 3, 4 years ago. So, yeah, we believe they did it, but at the same time, they can't come back and defend themselves. They don't have anybody to say they didn't do that. I'm you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying that, this guy didn't do it. I'm not saying he didn't have the capability to do it, but okay, you said he was a suspect, okay? So where's your evidence to back up saying, okay, he was here at this point in time? I'm not saying it's not there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they haven't presented it by now. Maybe after time we do this episode, it comes out later saying that they presented it, and this is why we believe that. Okay, and if that's the case, we'll report on it. We'll do another episode on it. I'm continuing looking on this. Okay, I'm not saying that it's not happening. What I'm saying is, up to this point, you're not presenting this or the people with anything saying that this happened. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying he did do it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying there's not anything really saying this happened. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Sam, a big Sam. I'm gonna ask you this question. How do you think this episode? Now we're wrapping up with the Zodiac Killer. I'm not doing anything else on this until we find more information because this episode, this topic will drive me crazy. How do you think this whole thing from part 1 to part 2 played out?
Man, I think it was good, man. At least for like me personally, I am a little bit of a true crime nut. I enjoy learning about serial killers, as morbid as it sounds. It's a topic that a lot of people like, so don't judge me. But I really like kind of getting to the psychological side of things with it a little bit. And so the Zodiac just kind of based on there not really being much. He was never really a guy that I kind of personally looked into. So I know personally, I learned a lot just being able to dive into it, do some research, talk about it. You had some things that I hadn't seen or heard yet. So it was definitely fun to dive into for me. Shit. Hopefully everybody else enjoys it as well. But I think it was a couple of good little episodes for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm really right there with you, man. It's one of those episodes, and there's a lot of look, I'm saying when I think about some of the episodes we can do with this podcast, there's so many different episodes, so many different ideas, man. Like, could just I talk about the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? Y'all, yeah, those who believe in the Matrix, like, oh, we're in a simulation. First of all, stop smoking so much weed. But anyways, for those think we're doing this, that. There's so many different paths we can take when it comes to everything. You know what I'm saying? I don't want this episode. I don't want this podcast, this show to just be one dimensional. I want to be able to take different avenues. And that being said, like if you have something, a topic you think, hey, Birdman, Big Sam, this is what I want you to talk about. You know what I'm saying? This is what's on my mind. This is what I'm thinking about. Let us research it. Send me an email. Okay. tbs.birdman@gmail.com. Send us an email. Okay. Let us know what topic you're thinking about. Let us research it. Let us talk about it. You know what I mean? Let's do that. You know what I'm saying? If you want to hit us up on Twitter, all you have to do is go to @Birdman podcast. That's it. @Birdman podcast. Send me a message on there. All right. If you want us to talk about something you think you're passionate about, hey, get me hip to it. Get Sam hip to it. All right. I'm gonna get Sam's information because I'm trying to get Sam to start getting on social media. I'm trying to get Sam on social media. We're gonna get him on there. You gotta remember we thawed him out from the Neanderthal stuff because he's got the.
Hey man,
I don't have the beard like that. I'm trying to get there.
I put the thing on my Snapchat story. I'll be telling people about it. Man, I ain't giving y'all my personal Twitter. You ain't gonna get my Twitter. I'm sorry. That's gonna remain
That's why
private.
you have burner accounts, fool.
That's all that's going. Hey, that's all it's gonna
just
be
create one for
that.
the show, fool. That's all I gotta do.
I don't even.
All right, you're right. Roger that.
But I ain't gonna be.
I'm gonna help him out, folks. I'm gonna help him out. I'm gonna help him out though. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it straight. He's a permanent fixture to this show, so we're gonna help him out get some stuff so that way we can get back to the show. But it is what it is. But like I said, if you want to get in contact with us, do that. Make sure you know what I'm saying. You go check out YouTube channel, and like the page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, you gotta make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to the Birdman Show, Birdman Show podcast. It's 9643 Birdman channel. Okay, it's the @Birdman Show podcast 9643. Go subscribe, like it. Like I said, you can also like us on our Facebook page, which is at Tim Birdman Simpson. Go there, like that, so where you can keep up to date on everything we're doing. If you have any ideas, you're like, hey, I want you all to talk about this, or hey, this is something I've been looking at. I want y'all to talk about that. Cool. We'll look at it. We'll do the research on it, and we'll talk about it. All right. If you want to be a guest on the show, hit us up. Okay, all the aforementioned reasons and everything you can contact us on, do that. But if you really want to get in touch with me, talk to me on tbs.birdman@gmail. Okay? And for those who don't know what Gmail is, tbs.birdman@gmail.com. Because some people like at Gmail, I didn't. Yeah, .com. Yes, just please. I don't know. I'm sorry. I have to even do that. I'm sorry. I don't know. All right, but anyways, Sam, tell the people. You know what I'm saying. What are your closing thoughts on the show?
Man, just to kind of double tap on what you said. Hit us with topics. Give us some stuff that y'all want us to talk about. Reach out to being on the show. We can get that set up somehow. Keep tuning in. We got a lot to talk about, so keep tuning in. It's gonna be fresh episodes. So that's kind of all I got to say about it on that.
That's right. Yeah, there's gonna be more future episodes, so please definitely make sure you latch on to us and get on this bad boy, so that way we can make this bad boy popping. All right. Hey, it's the Birdman, Big Sam. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Birdman Show, Season 2, Episode 2, Part 3, which is actually Episode 3, but whatever. Episode 2, Part 3, or Part 2, I'm sorry. I thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Riverside for the platform that we had doing this. I want to thank Anchor for supporting us as far as the audio part of the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future. It's the Birdman, and I'm out. Do it with me.